Hello, my name is Brandon Mills, and I'm the Assistant City Administrator here in DeSoto. The purpose of this video is to give you a brief overview of Tax Increment Finance, or TIF, in 12 minutes or less. This is TIF 101. Let's say you're a developer that wants to build the next big auto dealership on the Astra Enterprise Park, formerly known as the Sunflower Ammunition Plant. However, the cost of purchasing the land, removing any existing old buildings, and adding public utility improvements such as water and sewer lines will make the development expensive, and you are worried the numbers won't work. A city official who wants to see the property developed and benefit the residents suggests using tax increment finance to develop the property. This should spur a couple of important questions, namely, what is TIF? How does it work? How does it impact my business? And most importantly, how will it impact the average taxpayer? Essentially, TIF is an economic development tool and agreement between the government and the developer that allows the developer to be reimbursed for public improvements related to the project. Going back to our example of the car dealership, the developer would have to pay for all construction-related costs, like streets and water improvements, or the demolition of abandoned buildings. However, since the area has been deemed blighted, under TIF, the developer could reimburse themselves for eligible project costs by capturing the incremental or increase of property taxes as a result of the development. We'll dive into the details of this in the next section, but the key takeaway is that the developer would receive reimbursement on a portion of the property taxes they paid. Specifically, the property taxes on the increased or incremental value of the development for public improvements. Kansas law outlines what type of expenses can be reimbursed. Typical expenses include the demolition of existing structures, public improvements such as roads, sidewalks, water, and sewer lines, and land acquisition. So how do we determine what is blighted? Examples of blight include abandoned properties, buildings with major structural issues, and areas of town with environmental contamination. This slide gives us two examples of blight. The one on the left is an example of blight in an urban setting. The one on the left is a photo of a partially demolished building at the Sunflower Ammunition Plant. Given the state of these properties, unless there's some kind of financial incentives, properties like these are hard to develop due to the significant redevelopment costs. Now that we've defined TIF, we need to know how it works. In our example from before, the developer requests that the city create a special district to be developed, called the TIF district. By law, the city must conduct an analysis to determine if the project meets the following legal requirements. 1. The property is blighted. 2. The development would not be feasible but for the incentives. A but-for requirement means that the development would not happen without the TIF. 3. The development would benefit the community and the developer. The analysis sets a baseline value for the property, or the value of the property when the TIF is approved. The city holds a public hearing to discuss the TIF district and votes to approve or deny the district. The county, fire district, and school district will decide to allow the TIF or veto it. Assuming each government agrees to the TIF, a special district is created. This is a picture of 4 jars. The jars represent the amount of property tax generated on the property. You'll notice the first jar only has soil in the bottom. The soil represents the value of the blighted property. It represents the value of the land when the TIF district is established. At the recording date, the land out of the Astra Enterprise Park is classified as agricultural. Let's say, in our hypothetical situation, that the county appraiser has valued the property I've identified to be worth about $15,000. That would generate about $400 in property tax each year. Under TIF, the $400 is frozen until a development generates significant revenue to pay for the redevelopment that the city and developer have agreed to, or until the TIF expires. It is important to note that the portion of the property taxes for the state of Kansas and the local school districts are protected from TIF and are not subject to the frozen value. However, we are focusing on the impact of the TIF on the city. The jar pictured in this slide represents the first year of the TIF. As the dealership is constructed and completed, the value of the property increases, and therefore the property taxes will increase as well. When this happens, the property taxes will be broken into two streams. The first stream, represented by the soil, is tied to the old property value, often called the base value. That stream of $400 is frozen and will continue to go to the school district, fire district, county, and the city. The second stream, represented by the blue stones, is the difference or increment between the base value and the new higher value of the property. Let's say, when completed, the car dealership is worth $3 million and generates about $90,000 in property taxes. The developer would be eligible to receive the incremental growth of approximately $89,600 annually to reimburse themselves for the land cost, sidewalks, and improvements to the water and sewer lines to the property. The jar showed on this slide represents the district 5 years after the TIF has started. The green rocks on top of the blue rocks represent the incremental growth in the value of the property over the last 4 years. Most of this increase is due to the annual increase in property values throughout the county that we all experience. By year 5, the developer is eligible for a significant portion of the incremental growth. Again, the developer can only use everything above the dirt line, and the reimbursement is restricted to costs related to land acquisition, streets, sidewalks, and water and sewer improvements to the property. The final jar represents the property taxes collected when the TIF expires. As you can see, the jar is full of dirt to represent the full value of the property is back on the tax rolls. Additionally, the developer will no longer be able to receive reimbursements for infrastructure on the property. Our final question is, how does this impact the average taxpayer? City Council believes that the development pays for development, meaning that the average taxpayer does not pay for public improvements related to the TIF. Under TIF, the developer, not the taxpayer, must pay for the improvements, and only then will they be reimbursed with the increased value of their developed property. Time limits on the TIF, which is no longer than 20 years, incentivize the developer to complete the projects in a timely manner. Additionally, the developer must continue to pay the base value of the property taxes on the property for the entire duration of the TIF. TIF districts provide new opportunities and encourage private businesses to invest in our community. In the example of the car dealership, the city will get its share of all sales tax and franchise fees collected in the TIF district. These investments will allow the city to reduce its dependency on property taxes while protecting the average citizen from paying for development. To sum it all up with a few key takeaways, TIF districts grow the tax base by creating economic opportunities in areas that are difficult to develop. Because the developer is paying for and then being reimbursed for the public improvements, the taxpayer is protected from paying for economic development. TIFs promote public-private partnerships to promote economic growth, jobs, prosperity, and turn rundown portions of the town into the economic engines of our community. This has been TIF 101. My contact information is on the slide. If you'd like more information on TIF or other economic development tools in the city, you can find our information on the city website. Thanks for listening.